This is Dr. Jeff Block, and I'm pleased to speak with you today about growing anthuriums, velvet-leafed anthuriums from seeds to specimens. In real life, I'm actually also known as Doc Block. I'm a physician anesthesiologist and botanist, but I've enjoyed working with these beautiful plants for over 40 years. And when I first started, they were almost all green with silver veins. However, through selective breeding and some choices over those years, now they come in reds and purples and things that I've been fascinated with ever since. These are among the most beautiful, as I said, of all aroids. I believe they are regal in a sense. And if you look, it's not simply the front of the leaf, but the back of the leaves that are sometimes mystifying to me, because here's one with a very decidedly pink background, and the veinage that goes through it almost looks like circulation going through the back of the leaf. The front is almost a negative image of it, still very colorful and obviously healthy, holding on to many leaves in this particular case. These plants that I've bred have come in many different colors, ranging from oranges and light greens to almost blacks, browns, and reds, and the veinage pattern on them makes them further interesting to me. Working with them is a health and wellness experience I've enjoyed for most of my adult life, and I encourage all of you to enjoy the nurturing nature associated with raising plants. Of course, you got to get them to survive, and sometimes as young plants, they're quite beautiful. I do see the world through colors, and this is a decidedly red leaf. This is the next picture I'll be showing you in just a moment. Almost all of these do mature to different shades of green. So a healthy plant is quite something to behold in this, because they can get large only by the constraints, perhaps, of the containers they're in. Here's another beautiful example of something, and there are fans out there of these types of plants, including those that personalize them on themselves. And here's one such example of the picture that I showed before. I don't have tattoos, but I can tell you I've enjoyed working with them. This is an anthurium named after my wife, Michelle, that I've used for breeding, as you could see from the tags on the plant there. But this plant was also produced more recently from cellular level, so whether from seeds or cells, going from a small plant to a specimen is the title of this brief 10-minute talk, and I wanted to share it with you because this plant derived many offshoots that fortunately are enjoyed by growers throughout the world. These are more Anthurium Michelle plants. So when we look at these, we see different colors, but in fact, each of the plants can show many colors. Here's a more established plant, but the fact that it shows so many colors actually reveals the rate of growth of this plant being relatively fast. I work outside and enjoy these from a greenhouse area and a workbench. Here are some of the plants I bred this past year as a relatively recent picture. And we're meeting through a forum on Discord called Anthurium Affairs. It's meant to have an open, full forum discussion with people around the globe about how to better succeed in nurturing these wonderful plants. Here's an example of a few different hybrids and cultivars I've bred over the years, and perhaps the bottom picture there is most revealing of the tremendous colors that you can see. But it starts with seeds, and as a result, the flower spikes that some specimens can produce have many seeds on them that can be removed, and then the fruits are actually what are being removed. They need to be cleaned off. I simply do this with a strainer and my fingers, and sometimes along with my fingers pressing the pulp of the fruit away, a good brisk wash with a hose helps me clean off the seeds. There's nothing better than a fresh, clean seed to sow that hopefully deals with some of the constraints of germination that should come within a few weeks after harvesting seeds, hopefully that come out as clean as the ones you see over here. If you'll notice very carefully, though, if you look on close-up, some of those seeds already start to appear a little green. And that's because there's actually chlorophyll that's happening inside the seed, which has a translucent membrane on the outside. So when seeds are sown, they would like to be surface sown so that the ones that are already turning green, signifying chlorophyll, before that first wonderful tap root and leaf come out, and you'll take a close-up look at it coming up here, even little hairs on that tap root are fascinating because they increase the surface area. They act sometimes even electrically to interface with the environment. and it increases the surface area for absorbing water and nutrients, both at least from the roots. That's half the secret, what happens underneath the surface. So most plants sold on the open market are a smaller size. This is a 4 to 5 inch pot. I apologize for my metric challenge comments in inches, but they grow up. And they grow up to the specimens. This particular specimen is the same specimen used to create clones, basically cellular divisions, not directly from seeds, of Anthurium Michelle, named after my wife, Michelle. So they do start, as I said, from little fruits that are on the outsides of flowers. And here I am removing a few of those fruits, and they have tiny little seeds, normally a cream color when they first come out. But when those are sown on the surface, either of what's called a liner, which is a pre-filled media that is pH adjusted and ideally retains enough moisture for what that new seed needs, warmth and moisture. They're sown in trays such as this, and then those trays are let the seed germinate. So as you can see from this, it is possible to germinate healthy seedlings side by side, and each of those can become a dedicated plant, just like the one you saw. It just requires a little nurturing work. This is a colleague at AgriStarts, which is a tissue culture lab in Florida, and he's holding one of those little liner plugs that was started again with Anthurium Michelle. These pictures now not being germinated seeds, but actually tissue culture from cells. The nice part is they produce beautiful and consistent fine genetics, if you start with the right genetics, that if you look at each of those liners closely, you'll see what's the real secret: healthy roots growing beneath the surface. I can't overestimate the importance of healthy roots. Now, this doesn't only have to be done in little liner plugs. It could be done by actually putting the seeds directly into community pots or trays and watching the little leaves come up as they first germinate. The important thing at this stage is treat it like a newborn nursery with plenty of warmth and nutrition. Never put your kids to bed at night wet. These are all things you would associate with how to raise a young one, and plants are no exception. There's a temperature probe that goes into that back tray to give me some idea. Even in Miami, we have cold weather in the winter. So there's a grow mat that's underneath this, in essence, neonatal intensive care unit, which again, although metrically challenged, that will say 80 degrees Fahrenheit. And check it always, please, with a real standard thermometer. Don't necessarily believe one gauge. But when it's done this way, you can actually separate out the individual plants and put them into separate containers to grow. And I would normally, in the process of being a hybridizer and breeder, hold on to certain plants that I can later look at in terms of seeing how they perform. So when they're grown out and they start to resemble the best qualities of both parents as hybrids, to me that's an exciting new introduction that I love to share. So the plants that I grow, I do retain some that I look for future development. I don't release any plants that I'm not already 2 full generations ahead of with breeding, and I encourage other people to work with them and enjoy them for growing and breeding as I have, because there's a whole new world out there for not just these plants, but for those who understand how to work with them. Some plants need a little work. This is, in fact, Anthurium carlablacii, a beautiful plant when small, and that's a pretty good veinage, but it's very slow and produces relatively few seeds. So for a commercial purpose, maybe not that good. Here is a very different, totally different genetics, but with a similar veinage pattern there on even a darker leaf than you would find with typical carlablacii. So this is something that fulfills a need. Here's another example. The 2 lower plants are round forms of magnificum and crystallinum that I've done crosses of, which later can be changed into something with a long, narrow leaf, like the previous picture showed a plant called Wakarianum. Very difficult to breed with those other plants, though. So I've had tremendous success over 40 years doing this, and have accumulated some beautiful colored versions of things that were not available when I started into this wonderful hobby. Maybe the best way to see the different veinage patterns and things could be in this collage, which are actual pictures of different hybrids that are all put together in a wonderful collage to show the full range of plants that velvet-leafed anthuriums can produce. Now, that covers this talk. I hope you've enjoyed it. We'll look forward to keeping in touch, and hopefully people will find more that they need to learn about through discussions on anthurium affairs. Thanks for listening.